On this week's show, happy birthday, NASA. 60 years in space. Now, where do we go from here? The last human to step on the moon stepped off on December 13, 1972. He was United States Navy Captain Eugene Andrew Cernan, commander of Apollo 17, which was the final Apollo mission. Just a month before he passed away in 2017, Gene Cernan sat down for an interview that has not been seen until now. And if you ever wondered why bother with space, he explained why we can be proud of that investment.
Technology needs a focus, it needs a goal, it needs a challenge, it needs a purpose to be developed. You just don't develop technology and then say, what do I do with it? You've got to have a reason. And a reason in the past has always been wars. Okay, think about it. If you look back far enough, television came from the radar evolution during World War II, and all these other things that came they came historically from wars. From weapons came useful technology that people could use in the factories in their homes. Our Cold War race with the Russians did the same thing. Well, we didn't bomb millions of cities and kill millions and millions of people. We lost some people along the way, there's no question. We had our ticker tape parades, but we paid dearly for our mistakes. But when it was all done and said, we did it without a massive world Holocaust, if you will.
President Eisenhower signed NASA into existence in 1958. President Kennedy vowed we'd go to the moon in the 1960s, and we did. And Lyndon Johnson said, there are no blueprints or roadmaps which clearly mark out the course. The limits of the job are no less than the limits of the universe. So where do we go from here? Let's ask Dr. Michelle Thaller, a NASA astrophysicist. Welcome to the big picture.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Holland.
We all know about Velcro and Tang, but give us more of the space dividend. What do we have as a result of what Gene Cernan said?
I know, it's funny. We always get told about the Velcro and Tang, actually, neither of which were true NASA spin-offs.
Urban myth.
Urban myth, exactly. That's right. So many things. I mean, being a scientist, I think about the tremendous increase in knowledge as to who we are and what our place in the universe is. But if we want to get practical about how it's changed our lives, who ever thought about miniaturizing a computer, right? Why would you want to do that? In World War II, we had these giant computer rooms that took up whole floors of buildings. Well, what if you want to launch it into space? You need to make it small. And I bet right now you're probably carrying around a computer somewhere on you that is more powerful than the best computers we had in the Apollo program. But you have it because we went into space.
That thing that landed up there had 33K in it. There's more than that in your watch now, right?
Absolutely.
What are some of the other things that fell out of space that we use commonly?
Well, I mean, we think about things like the detectors, the cell phone cameras, the GPS system that actually allows you to know where you are anywhere on the planet. That's a satellite system, of course. But to me, they're even more fundamental things because we now understand our environment and our own planet a lot better because we've seen it from space. From space, there are no borders. You see the Earth as a system, how the atmosphere affects the oceans, the ozone hole. The fact that we were depleting the ozone layer, destroying our own atmosphere, was discovered in the late 1970s and early 1980s by NASA satellites, among other people.
You said a minute ago to find out who we are, and I remember Carl Sagan being interviewed, might have been in the 70s, and somebody asked him the same question, why bother? And he said, to find out who we are. And this is a lot of the curiosity driving what we're doing on Mars now, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We need to understand how the building blocks of life are brought to planets, what makes our planet habitable as opposed to something like Mars. Now, there's a possibility there still is life today on Mars, microbes, maybe somewhere under the soil. We need to find them, prove them. I mean, the amazing thing is maybe in a few decades of studying life on Mars, we'll know how life starts, how things actually get going. So, at the moment, the only example we have of life is here on Earth. We don't know of life anywhere else. But what if in the next 10 years we could find examples of life on Mars, on a moon of Saturn, on a moon of Jupiter? The next generation of people that get to graduate school could have 4 different instances of different kinds of life.
Rich guys like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson are spending a pile to send billionaires for a joyride in space. Is NASA cool with this, or is it noise?
Well, you know, one of my favorite things that I've done in the last year is I've been to several SpaceX launches and landings, and they are amazing to see. And when you see a rocket take off, and then 7 minutes later, it, you know, dumps off a satellite in space, comes back and lands the first stage.
Wow.
It's, your eyes don't believe what's happening. The thing to remember is that SpaceX, for example, is one of our major partners, that they actually launch our resupply missions to the space station. NASA pays for those rockets. You know, we're actually a partner with them in space exploration itself. I mean, to me, the more companies that are using space as a platform, the more people up there, the better. Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin's recently built a big new building right by the visitor center at Kennedy. So I've been driving past that, so you can see the changes that are going on at Kennedy right now.
So it's just more knowledge in general because there are more people doing it, right?
Well, I mean, I want cheaper ways to get into space. I want ways that, you know, more access. We can put up more smaller satellites.
Are we coming to the point where we will no longer need to hitch a ride with the Russians to the International Space Station?
Well, that's the idea. We are currently scheduling test launches for these crewed capsules, crew being, you know, big crewed. That'll be happening later this year, and then hopefully in the next year we will actually start putting astronauts in them. So soon we will be launching astronauts from Kennedy Space Center.
Wow. What goes on up there? What are they doing? I mean, we say the phrase International Space Station so nonchalantly now. When I was a kid, this was the Jetsons. What are they doing up there right now?
The amazing thing is that there have been people continuously in space for the last 18 years. That's how long the ISS has been up there. Every single moment of every day, there's been people above us in orbit doing scientific experiments, doing human biology experiments. We actually have an instrument up there right now called NICER, which is trying to build a new GPS system out of the cores of dead stars rotating thousands of light years away. A GPS system that you can tell where you are anywhere in our galaxy. The scientific advances of the space station are incredible. And I know for a fact, I have friends up there right now, you know, they work very hard. There's a lot of experiments to do. They're very busy. But they also spend a lot of time just looking down at the beautiful planet passing below them. And I know it affects them very, very deeply.
Astrophysicist. Why did you want to do that for a living? When did you first know?
So I am definitely not a great person to ask that, because the answer is since I was conscious. My mother said that when my parents are not scientists. My mom said as soon as I could walk, I wanted to go out and look at the stars, and I couldn't even tell her why. The stars have fascinated me since I was a very small child. And 20 years on being a scientist at NASA, I started about 20 years ago at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It hasn't gotten any less. It's still just as inspiring.
I thought of you when the cable showed Matt Damon as the Martian other day. Do you scoff through that, or did you learn anything through that? How feasible is what we saw?
You know, the author of The Martian, Andy Weir, did a lot of work and a lot of research, and he talked to a lot of people at NASA about what might work for a Mars mission. So the thing that, my main reaction to that movie was, I want that. I want all of that. I want that Mars mission. I want that amazing spaceship that was in orbit between the Earth and Mars and continuously looped between them. The science was very, very solid. There certainly were parts of it that were not accurate, but Andy Weir knew that.
Right.
He knew he had to advance the plot by having some things that weren't quite right. And as somebody that enjoys entertainment and movies, you know, I thought it was a wonderful movie. So, you know, my main reaction was, I want that.
Me too. Thank you, Dr. Michelle Thaller from NASA, and happy 6-0
Thank
to
you very
NASA.
much. Yes.
In December of 1972, did you imagine that it would be, we'd go nearly half a century with no attempt to go back to the moon?
No one remembers the last words on the moon except me, perhaps, but I said, and God willing, we shall return. This is the most sought-after picture NASA has ever produced. The Earth that you're privileged to see at that moment. I don't care by what name you call your God, how you dress him, or how you decide to worship him. I can promise you there is a creator of this universe, at least a small part of the universe I was privileged to see. Too beautiful to have happened by accident. Apollo 17, we're the last flight. I'd like to think it was the best. My goal in life was to do it better than it had ever been done before. We landed in a valley that had mountains on 3 sides higher than the Grand Canyon is deep. To land in that valley, and once you're down 7,000 feet, I mean, I was looking up at the mountains. After Apollo 13, I think we really got our act together and developed a confidence with, particularly with 15, 16, and 17. We had more capability on the LEM, longer stay times, took lunar rovers, could do things we couldn't do before. You can only learn so much by sending a robot, a camera, some kind of device there. What you really need to do is put man there with all his intelligence to make the decision of what to look at and when and for how long. So 18, 19, and 20, I think, might very well have taken us to some of those places. I think our level of confidence was high enough, and we were now looking at the more scientifically interesting places to go and things to do, and we were confident enough in a technology that we could get there safely and back. Who knows? That's just my thinking.
And that sure is the big picture. With big thanks to Paul Gleiser at KTBB Radio in Texas, who conducted what may have been Gene Cernan's last interview.